Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. This is where top performers share their secrets to help you achieve your personal and your professional goals. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my truly amazing guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights to take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast really is a must listen. And again, it's because of my guests. So whether you're tuning in for entrepreneurial tips, career advice, or personal development strategies, get ready to turn inspiration into action, challenges into triumphs, and dreams into reality. And I always suggest you take notes, lots of notes. So my guest today, Jane Blaufus, is a Certified Life Underwriter, CLU, in parentheses, and the author of the best-selling book, With the Stroke of a Pen, Claim Your Life. That book belongs in my entrepreneurial shelves. It's been here for years. She is also a longtime friend and colleague. So at a high level, Jane's background is a testament to her resilience and her determination. Born in Montreal, she was raised by her entrepreneurial mother, who was a professional dress designer, and her influence undoubtedly shaped Jane's path. So after attaining a fashion management degree, Jane took an unexpected turn by entering the insurance industry, intending to stay for just 1 year. But little did she know that 1 year would turn into a remarkable 27-year career. Now, Jane has been here before. I mentioned that earlier. And in our previous conversations, we've touched on her remarkable achievements. But today, we're going a little bit deeper because we're going to dive in to the driving forces behind her journey. Specifically, we'll delve into a pivotal moment that changed everything, the accident that altered the course of Jane's life forever. And many of us would and do struggle to bounce back from such a traumatic experience, especially the loss of a spouse. Jane has managed to, it took her some work, has managed to emerge as a beacon of strength and resilience. And we're going to discuss that journey, explore resilience, growth, and finding purpose in the face of adversity. Jane, good morning. Welcome back to Your Partner in Success Radio. It's so good to have you back.
Good morning, Denise. Thank you very much for that heartfelt introduction. I'm sitting here going, is that me she's talking about?
Well, yeah. You wrote it. No, you didn't.
No, you wrote
I
it.
did. I did. But I've known you for so long. We've been friends and colleagues. And every once in a while, I think you're my coach just because you step in and go, Denise, have you thought about, okay, I'm thinking. So thank you for everything you do.
Well, thank you. And that's the collaboration point that you were talking about, because you do a lot for me and for the work that I'm doing. So it's a pleasure to be connected, respected, and to be here on your podcast again. I love talking to you.
Thank you. And it's been too long. So tell us, I don't want to take up all of this time because I want people to hear from you. Tell us a bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I always try to show up my best, of course. And the days that I'm not my best, I'm incognito under a hat and glasses, but we shouldn't, sort of go there. But no, I just have reached a point in my life where I figured out why God put me on the face of the earth and what I'm supposed to be doing with this wonderful life and time that He's given me here. So I am doing my best to make a positive impact and to leave a legacy that my daughter can be proud of, that I can be proud of, and to just help people, where and whenever I can.
And you do. We titled this show, The Day I Found My Why.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying when, we're saying why, and that's pretty specific. So let's talk about that.
Well, as you referenced a little, in the introduction, I did experience a very traumatic event in my life. As I was in the life insurance industry. And of course, being in the industry, I naively thought that I had everything covered. if anything ever happened to me, you know, I'd be fine because I knew what I was doing. And you referred to my CLU, which is a designation which gives me a lot of, you know, courses, book knowledge, et cetera, into planning, estate planning, all of that stuff. So I figured I had it all under control. But when a police officer walks up your driveway on a Sunday and tells you that your 39-year-old husband was killed in an accident that morning, and you suddenly become a widow with a 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter and a financial tsunami coming your way, it kind of pulls the rug out from under you and, you know, alters your world, in my case, in less than 60 seconds. So I went from being, you know, thankful for all that I had in terms of, you know, a wonderful life, successful marriage, great husband, great child. My parents were still alive. I have a wonderful sister, to being face down almost on the, you know, the driveway, and not even being able to wonder what came next. So that was the case of, okay, so the big question after that, once the fog lifted, was, okay, where do I go from here?
Well, and that's the question, isn't it? Where do you go from there? And you and I have talked about this because this is a natural phenomenon that people don't expect to have happen to them. I've lost so many friends who have lost husbands or children. You have had a lot of loss in my family as well. When you're operating with grief brain, there are some decisions you just should not be doing. And I think a lot of people just, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And sometimes you really shouldn't.
Well, and the problem is you end up almost becoming a robot, because grief brain is like being in a fog 24/7. You know, here's an example. My mother was staying with us and she would say to me, Jane, do you want peas or carrots with dinner? And I would look at her and she would repeat her question again. And I was incapable of deciding what vegetable I wanted to eat for dinner. And there I was, thrust into making some of the most monumental decisions, both personally and financially, that one would ever have to make as an adult. And it's a roller coaster. Grief is a roller coaster, and grief for everybody is different. You know, I'm not a big supporter of the 5 stages of grief, because I remember going to my therapist and saying, okay, like, I've gone through stage 1. Where's stage 2? Like, how do I know it's coming? When does it happen? Because I'd read, you know, some books and this, that, and the other. She goes, no. She says, everybody does this their own way. So stop putting pressure on yourself to think that there's something wrong with you because, okay, you haven't gone to stage 2. So I think that, you know, it's just, I don't wish it upon anyone, not even my worst enemy, because it's horrible. And it's very scary. For me, it was very scary. I've never been so low in my life. And I hope to heck I'm never that low again, because my heart goes out to anyone who struggles with these sort of things. It's not a nice place to be.
It's not. And we're definitely talking here about, you know, the financial repercussions, all the different things that you're going through. But, and this is going to sound like I'm a bit off track here, but I'm not. We are a world who adores our pets. You have Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
I have feline office assistants, one of whom is quasi-famous because he's a hashtag on Facebook. He gets Christmas cards. He does. Hashtag, I said hashtag, his head jumped up. Hashtag Hamilton is an ass. He's a 20-pound ginger with attitude.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised he's not here on the desk going, hey, Jane, how are you? What's happening? How's Tucker? You know, he's just... But when I lost I love this dog more than almost anything or anybody. When I lost Abby Rose a few years ago,
Yep.
I went straight into grief brain for longer than I thought it would take. It was awful. So it's not just we're losing a spouse or a child or humans. When we lose something or somebody that we love beyond all reason, it can be a dog, it can be a cat. We're going to go through some of this. So just be aware.
Yep. Yeah, because they're part of the family. If they aren't part of the family, excuse me, in my humble opinion, you shouldn't have them, because
Yes.
you don't love them like they're part of your family. Tucker's 13 years old now. his back end's starting to give out. He does the, the splits from the back end, and you go, are you okay? But whatever happens, we'll take care of him until, it's time not to take care of him anymore. We took him on as a responsibility. He has gifted us with love and joy and antics and fun times and funny times, and they're just part of the family. So yeah, there's all different varying degrees of grief. And that's why I say no two people experience it the same way.
We really don't. And I think it's important to understand that you cannot schedule your grief stages.
Oh, no.
It's just ridiculous.
No. When I was going through it, one day I would be fine. The next day I couldn't get out of bed. The next day I would be singing from the top of the rooftops because I was in a great mood. You go up and down like a toilet seat. Oh. Sorry, but it is, you cannot judge what you're going to be feeling next. And that's what my therapist said to me. You've just got to let it come, ride it, but you've got to try not to stay there if you can, and to try to, come out the other side. So for everybody's different.
Absolutely. And that leads me to your book, which I do have. And, it's on I've got 3 bookshelves in this room. They're full. Every single book in this room, hundreds of books, was gifted to me by my podcast guests. And I've got your book. My bookshelves stagger. This is the really important ones. These are the really good ones. These are like, I read them once, they're okay. I'm not giving them away because I may need them again. And they were a gift. They're mine. I'm keeping them. But you're in bookshelf number 1, the one that's close to my desk.
Oh, thank you.
Thought I'd let you know.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what had you saying, I need to share what I know, both at a personal level and a professional level.
Okay, before we go there, could I just share something that I probably should have just shared with the last little piece there? We've all heard of PTSD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is something that my heart goes out to anybody who struggles with that. And as I said, I went to a dark place that I've never been to before and hope I never go to again. But have you ever heard of post-traumatic growth syndrome?
I have, but not enough to be really aware of what it is.
Okay, and I'm not the expert on this, so please, anybody out there, I'm not holding myself out as an expert on this, but I have heard about it. I've talked to many people about it. It's where instead of going down the slippery slope into sort of that dark place, it's some people almost get catapulted into a completely different trajectory, which is it helps them to grow in ways that they didn't realize they had the potential to grow. And it's, in my case, that's sort of what happened to me. I did the going down within the first 6 months. Like, I tried to keep it all together. And at the 6th month, I hit the wall and had a nervous breakdown. And after that, I knew I couldn't stay there. So what was the alternative? So I started working my way out of it with tools and people and whatever. And then I started to realize, okay, there was something behind all of what I went through. And that sort of segues into what you just said about the book. And it wasn't right away, because he passed away in 1999, and I finally left corporate in 2008. And after I was out of corporate and I started my own business, I'm a business coach as well. And I started my own business, but there was this story rattling around in my head about everything that had happened. And it was like, okay, and I pushed it back for a number of years. I even started writing about it, but it was just a brain dump of stuff. And then I started to realize that I could, with having been in the insurance business, thinking I was well prepared, finding out I wasn't as prepared as I thought, I started thinking, okay. And then I started creating a list of sort of tips to try to help people to go through, to try to to work their way, our sort of a roadmap to help them work their way through the fog, like we said, the grief fog. Like, what do I do next? Who do I have to contact? What do I have to do? What do I have to do? All of this kind of thing. And this sort of leads into, am I jumping too far ahead if I go right into the day I found my why?
No, keep going.
Okay. So, I'm sitting, I have my office is based in my home. I have a gorgeous office in the front of my home with sunshine pouring in. And I'm sitting here at my desk one day, and all of a sudden, literally, I'm not making this up. I was sitting here and I looked up at the ceiling in my office and I went, okay, I've got it. Stop beating me over the head, God.
Those are God winks. You've heard me say this.
Yes. And there was one that day.
Yeah.
There was a strong one that day. And I just said, I've got it. You don't need to keep knocking on my head. I know it's thick, but I finally figured this out. I am supposed to take this and I'm supposed to pay it forward. Because what are the odds of somebody who joined the life insurance industry to try it out for 1 year, sticking around, losing a husband while I'm in the insurance industry, thinking I'm prepared. I'm happily remarried. You know who he is. He's the VP of everything else, my wonderful husband, Michael.
And he harasses me all the time.
Well, no, we won't go there. That's a full podcast. But
I VIP.
Yeah. Michael was married to my girlfriend that we lost to cancer. So what are the odds that you get two widows and a child who lost her father sort of under the same roof eventually? Next month, we're celebrating our 18th wedding anniversary. This October, we've been together for 23 years. So I was given a second chance. So I went, okay, I finally realized what my problem was. I had the book on the left side. I had this checklist on the right side. And I went, no, I have to put them together in one place. And when I realized that, Denise, that's when I took off. I hired a book coach and I started writing. And I literally wrote a book and self-published it. And it had a book launch in 6 months. And I remember my book coach told me he was at the book launch. He was my MC, and he says, when Jane told me she was going to write and have her book in the physical form, ready to hand out to somebody in 6 months, I kept my mouth shut because I thought she was nuts. I would have given her at least, said, "Oh, give yourself 12 months." But no, this lady was determined because I realized I had to do this. I had to get it out there. So I took the checklist and I've turned it into a 33-page master checklist at the back of the book. And as you know, I'm lovingly referred to as a catalyst for courageous conversations, because when people don't sit around on a Friday night over drinks or dinner with loved ones, friends, whatever, and go, so what would happen to you, Denise, if you died tomorrow or you became, totally disabled or critically ill? People don't talk about that. They don't.
No, that would upset the table diners.
Well, if you ever want to clear out a lingering party of dinner guests, just don't yell fire, just bring up death, they'll all go.
Yeah. That actually has happened in my home, and I banned this woman from ever coming here again.
Well, it clears a room, and it's only because it's a fearful looking mortality in the face conversation. So I wanted to help take the fear and the angst out of that so that people could openly talk about it while they had their loved ones with them, or they had the person that they needed to ask the questions to. So I wanted to get the conversation started. So the conversation starts with ourselves first. We must determine and define what it is we want. Then how do you have a conversation with your family? And then how do you engage the necessary professionals to help you afterwards, and during? What kind of questions should you ask a financial advisor? And I recommend people have a financial advisor, because my financial advisor was my freaking lifeline after everything happened. He was the third call I made that day. what do you need to know with an accountant, a lawyer? How do you pre-plan a funeral? Because I found out that I was informed when I was trying to plan a funeral blindly that there's an average 96 questions you have to answer when you're trying to plan a funeral. 96. Then what do you need to do in terms of an executor for your estate? How do you pick legal guardians for your kids? All of that. So I shared the story. I put the checklist at the back, and it's gone out there. And I am so pleased to be able to say it's become a best-selling edition. It's in its third edition. And there's a companion planning binder that goes with it now, because my readers said, great, great, great. Tell me to get all this stuff, all these documents, but what do I do? Where do I start? Help, help, help. So there's this. So my message, like, I spoke in Thailand last year. I spoke in Singapore last year. I had my daughter with me in Singapore last year. She's now 37. She goes, Mom, I had no idea how sharing our story, because she wrote her own chapter. Chapter 8 is Daddy's Little Girl. And disclaimer is, don't read this book in public, because you'll either be laughing out loud or crying.
You'll be crying. Trust me on this.
Well, one lady told me about sitting on the subway and laughing her face off, and people thought she should be committed or taken off the subway. But it's just taken, it's not taken on a life of its own, but it's spread. And the people, here's case in point. My daughter called me the other day and said, Mom, I have some bad news. My good friend's brother-in-law was just diagnosed with liver and colon cancer. It's in a stage 4. I said, well, I'm sorry, sweetie. What can I do to help? And she said, well, Alex asked, would it be okay if her father called you? And I was like, pardon? I said, I don't know her father. I said, why? She says, well, he's read your book and he thinks you're amazing, and the strength you have, you're sharing your story, and they don't know. And would it be okay? And I said, it's okay, sweetie. Yes, of course he can call me. I'll be happy. I don't know what I can do to help. But that's when I get oh my God, this has gone farther than I thought it was going to go. So I don't want to ramble on, but that's just sort of the post-traumatic growth syndrome propelled me into something that has, I hope, become something that's helping and that will, leave. That's my legacy. I want to help people get their personal and financial lives in order while they can.
Exactly. And I think I shared this story with you probably at a different podcast 100 years ago. We've done several of these, but I live in Southwest Louisiana. And we're not stupid people. We are not slow, but things are a little bit different, particularly in Cajun country, and more particularly for the elder population, the quite elderly. And I had sold my house, was living in a rent house before I bought this one that I'm currently in. And my landlady called, which startled me because I'd never spoken with her. She lived 4 doors down, but I'd never actually met her. Her husband had died that day, and she called me. I don't know why. I still don't know why. She said, honey, I just don't know what to do. And she didn't, Jane. She was in her late 80s. She had never handled a checkbook, anything. He handled everything. He even took her to the grocery store. He was a very caring and very protective spouse. But he did not, and he didn't know any better. I mean, these are elderly Cajun people. I'm sure she's gone now as well. But, he did what men do. They took care of everything. They were the provider. They owned a lot of rent homes. They owned a lot of land. She said, I don't know what to do. I ran 4 doors down to her house and just kind of scooped her up. She's a tiny little woman, and listened to her and, handed her Kleenex and made copious cups of tea. And I said, where's your son-in-law? I can't find him. She didn't even know how to find him. Oh. He handled most of the stuff for the father-in-law. Oh. She didn't even have his phone number.
Oh no.
She knew how to reach her daughter, but her daughter wasn't home. Oh, and she needed to speak. I mean, it was just blow after blow to my stomach. I left there and I went home, bought a bottle of Tums.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So you just don't know. My point for telling you that story is that people do need the information that you have given. That's my point.
Well, It sounds silly to say, but it really does make things easier. I'm going to share a funny story with you. So we talk about some things in this household that most households don't talk about, and that's just because of everything we've been through, whatever. So our daughter came over one day, and I said, "Okay, we have to have a family meeting." And she goes, "Oh God, what now?" Because she just sort of goes, "Oh, what's coming next?" And so we were sitting in the family room, and I said, "Well, you know, when Daddy died, I planned my own internment, right?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "Well, I never thought I would get remarried because, I just figured that was it. And there's this lovely crypt sitting in, where my husband is buried. And the other side has a very pristine, very clean marble piece waiting for my name to be engraved in it with the date I was born, the day I died, because on the bottom it says forever together." And so I said, "Well, I talked to your stepdad, who's now dad, and I said I've expressed my wishes to him, and he said that that's okay with him, but I wanted to talk to you about it." You could see Denise, if you could have seen her face, the poor kid, you could tell the wheels were turning in her head. I said,
Talk faster.
"Pardon?"
Talk faster. I need to hear the rest of this story.
Okay, so she
No, I'm kidding. But
okay.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out where you're going with it.
Well, she says to me, "Okay." So I said, "Well, I want to be cremated, right?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, then I just want you to divvy me up, plant me 50-50, 50 with Daddy and 50 with Dad."
Oh,
And there's silence. And she looks at me and she goes, "Okay, that makes sense, Mom. You've loved two men. But how do I figure out which half goes where?" I said to her,
it's a valid question.
it's a very valid question. I said, "Oh God," I said, "just shake me up and divvy me down the middle." And my husband, her dad, goes, "Oh, great. I'll get the half that talks."
Oh my God. And that's why he's the VIP in my book. So,
but I share that story with you because we could laugh about it, because we were talking about it when things were calm. Nobody was in a heightened emotional state. We weren't frantically running around like chickens with our heads cut off. We still joke, like I can joke about it today, and I bring it up. She tells people the story. So it's just, look, we're nobody's getting out of here alive.
no.
Okay, it's just how we choose to go out. And I personally think, my mantra is we have an obligation to ourselves and to those we love to leave this world in an organized manner. It is not fair to leave chaos behind. So do you want your legacy to be, oh, that left me with a can of worms and nothing but a fire, a roaring fire because nothing's been taken care of? Or do you want them to go, "Wow, what a person, they took care of everything so that I would be okay"? Or this is like I know what to do. When, like I said, when my first husband died, I had no idea. He was 39. He flew jets in the Canadian Air Force, and he drove fast motorcycles. He thought he was immortal. So every time I brought up the conversation as to what he would want if anything happened, he always turned it around and talked about me. He knew what I wanted. I had no idea. It was like he put a pair of handcuffs on me and blindfolded me. Every decision I made, I second guessed, because I thought, okay, am I doing the right thing? And I had to take his family into, so it's not a nice place to be. Please, folks, have the conversation while you can, because it is, that MasterCard commercial, it's priceless.
The thing is, I mean, you can do it with humor. I lost my brother. He died. He was a double lung transplant patient, and he had an extra 8 years. My mom died just before he did. So we had a series of, here now, gone now, but we all had conversations about it. My sister in particular was in charge of both of, their estates. So we had big conversations, and they were humorous because we're a sardonic family. We're sarcastic with a touch of sardonic. So we always have a sense of humor about things. But somebody said, well, Denise, what do you want? And I said, hefty bag. Just plant me under a tomato garden. And they just went, okay. You know, I don't believe in funerals. That's a personal thing, but I think they're bizarre. I think they're expensive. And I think there's so many different ways that you can do things. Like you, I will be cremated and probably scattered, underneath the pecan trees. I don't know, but you're not going to shove me in the ground.
My husband said, put me in the corner of the lawn, plant me head up. And I said, oh, great. And we live in the country. Who's going to come visit you besides me? And I said, and that's not fair to whoever buys the house. But, a good friend of mine is the youngest of 16 children.
They didn't know what caused it?
Seriously. French Canadian, good French Canadian, whatever, won't get in. But she's the youngest of 16. And during the pandemic, so half of her siblings, some of them have passed away, but she had a good number of them that were still alive during the pandemic. And she started this thing where once a week, she would the whole family would get together on a Zoom call to stay connected and all of this kind of stuff. And then she had to split it into two because half had to be English and half had to be French. But do you know what she did on those Zoom calls? She took my book and she took my planning binder, which she has gifted to all three of her grown sons and said, get your act in order. I have a lot of people that gift it to their adult children. And it's amazing the reaction that the kids give, like, thank you, thank you, thank you. But she said, I wanted them to understand that this was important. And she said, one of my brothers has since passed away. And she said, I just happened to go visit him on a whim. He was sick. He died 3 days after she got there. But while she was there, she helped him to finalize a few things with paperwork, banks, this, that, and the other. And after he passed away, her sister-in-law said to her, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you did to help us get prepared, because I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't helped us with the help of that lady. So people don't understand, my dad passed away December 10th, 2003, and my mom passed away December 31st, 2004. Her rock was gone and she had cancer, but she just lost her, she'd lost her rock, 56 years married and whatever. I was their financial advisor when I was a practicing financial advisor, and I went through everything with them. They were in good shape financially. My mom had enough money to live on, but my mom was from England. She'd gone through the war. She'd known rough times, sparse times, whatever. And I remember I did a budget with her. This sounds kind of weird, but I did a budget with her one night. And we went through everything. And she went to bed and we were at my sister's house. It was Christmas time because my dad had passed away on the 10th. And she came downstairs and I looked at her. I said, hey, mommy, how you doing? Did you have a good sleep? She goes, oh, that was a terrible sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was tossing and turning all night. I said, why? And she turns and she looks at me. Now, my mother was 5 foot if you stretched her when she was wet.
Mine too, but she said she was 5'4". She wasn't. She lied.
Yeah, mine was 4 7/8, I think, or something. But anyway, she looked at me and she still had her British accent. And she looked at me and she goes, Jane. I said, yes. She says, how am I going to survive on $25 a month for food? And I looked at her and I said, pardon me. She says, well, that budget you did for me last night, you only gave me $25 a month for food. I said, Mommy, go get the budget. She brought it down and I went with my finger line by line. She had got the lines mixed up. Right underneath where I gave her plenty of money every month for food was $25 a month to get her hair done.
Oh.
She had spent a sleepless night thinking she wouldn't be able to eat. And that was with all of the work I'd done with them, all of the preparation, all of it. Still.
She fixated on that because of grief brain.
Exactly. So people don't realize how minute it could be. or how monumental it could be. In my case, it was monumental because I had a financial tsunami that came after me, after my husband passed away, because he was killed in a high profile accident where 3 other individuals were killed in the same accident. And I, along with a number of other people, got sued afterwards. I'm not going to go into any details, but it took 10 years for the lawsuits to be finalized. And for 10 years, I was afraid to spend the insurance money that had been lovingly put in place to take care of myself and my daughter. I was trying to get better jobs so I could make more money as a solo parent. And I didn't know if I was going to be destitute and living on the street in a tent if they won, or if I was going to be okay. Thankfully, it was the latter. But I spent 10 years stuck in a vacuum of not being able to let go. Somebody likened it to having your foot stuck in a door. You're trying to go down a hallway and your foot is stuck in one door and you cannot close the door behind you and move on.
That's just horrible.
It was awful. It was awful. And when I finally heard the verdict and knew I was like, this lawyer sent me this long, gobbledygook long letter with all these legal terms. And I phoned him. I said, just cut to the chase. Am I going to be okay? He said, you're going to be okay, Jane. I put the phone down and I cried for 2 hours because of the tension. I had no idea what I'd been carrying around in my body for 10 years. And afterwards, I went to my massage therapist and we'd gotten to know each other. And I told her what had happened. She says, now I understand why every time you got on my massage table, your shoulder blades twitched and why you were always so ramrod frozen in your neck. It was the stress you were carrying in your body. So there's lots of things we don't realize. So not to belabor this point, but do it while you can, because it's a gift of love. It's a legacy of love. And it's absolutely the best thing that you can give to the people that you care about. And
Jane,
that's why.
Yeah, it absolutely. And, I've been listening to you and taking notes, but you've worked with a lot of people over a lot of years with this book and with the work that you do in the insurance industry and as a coach and, as a speaker and a mentor. What if you had to pick 3 of the most important or the most consistent topics that people are asking you about out of all of this, what would they be?
One is, I can't get my parents to talk to me about what they want or what their financial situation is like. I know nothing. I am terrified that they're going to put me in charge of cleaning everything up. I don't know what they want. I'm afraid that if they leave me any money, I might blow it and they'd be so upset with me. So that's one of the ones. I actually had a young lady fall in my arms crying because she couldn't get her father. And I find often European families seem to be, her dad was European and it's not something that you want to talk about. Just whatever. I think the other thing too is there's a whole intergenerational transfer of wealth that's coming down the pipe. There's going to be a transfer of money in the trillions of dollars to the next generation. And a lot of them are very ill prepared to handle it. And there is going to be a huge transfer of wealth between women. And it's not just spouse, to husband to wife. It's starting to show up in mothers to daughters and grandmothers to granddaughters. And so I think that I do a lot of talking with women, and the thing I hear from women is, well, my husband handles everything, and my husband handles everything, so I don't need to worry about it, or my husband just handles it and won't let me ask questions. I said, well, then you better step up, and you better step up and step out for yourself, because 90% of women are forecasted to be responsible and be the chief financial person in their household at some point in their life. And that doesn't matter if you're 22 or 92. It can be anywhere in there. So women are saying, okay, what do I need to do? What should I do? And I just say, become educated, ask questions, be part of the discussion. And I guess the what would be the third one? It's kind of, I'm not trying to be self-serving here, but people just say, how do you have the strength to do this?
You don't really have any choice, do you?
No, I don't, because that's my why. That day I sat in my office and looked up, I went, I understand why I am here. I've got it. And, one of my coaches once challenged me to tell my story in 5 minutes. Now that ain't easy because I can give speeches up to 90 minutes. But she challenged me to give a speech about, where I came from, whatever. The one underlying theme that kept coming up and has kept coming up in everything for me is I've never gone, why me? Like, why me, God? Why did you pick me out and do this to me, this horrible thing to me? I've always gone, okay, why now? What am I supposed to learn from this? But more importantly, what am I supposed to do with what I've learned to help others? That's my why. And it goes back to when I was a kid. I had health issues and whatever, but it was always, if you want to, something organized, ask Jane. If you want the kids on the block to put a play together and we do it for the parents one night on a Friday night, get Jane to organize it. Like, I was always, that's just my personality. That's who I am. And I think that stood me in good stead for what happened to me. But that's my why. I know why I am here. It is ironclad. And I guess that's something people say to me. My God, you're passionate about what you do. I said, I am. And they say, and there's nothing phony about you. I said, no, because the facade cracks and falls apart at some point in your life. I'm just me. And I know why, and I know what I'm supposed to do. And it's what keeps me going sometimes through even ups and downs today. But I don't get into a discussion with me about life insurance being a ripoff or anything like that, because by the time you're finished with the discussion with me, you'll understand why it is one of the most valuable gifts that anybody could receive in today's day and age, because it's the only thing that's guaranteed.
Let's delve into that a bit.
In what do you mean?
Life insurance. Listen, you're going to hate me for this. I never go look for a job. I rendered myself literally unemployable. I'm an introvert. I don't play well with others. I run with sisters. You do not want me in your office, because if you want a cup of coffee, you can go get it your own damn self. I'm not going to do it for you. So,
if you did, they'd be wearing it.
Yeah, or wondering what was in that sediment at the bottom of the cup.
Yeah, what's in it?
But I do need to be alone, so I deliberately created, a job. It's not a job, but a career that I can run from my home. All by myself with my cats. I'm all happy. But I get to meet, and I lost my train of thought. I was going somewhere with that. I really was.
You wanted to talk about life insurance.
Life insurance, because so many people, and I mentioned I've had multiple deaths in my family, and not so long ago, so very long ago, I get this phone call from my best friend Maggie. She said Allison, who was her sister, just died. They did a wellness check because nobody had seen her, and she was in her recliner. She was dead.
Ugh.
So I know. So here goes Maggie and her brother, and they're heading out for Atlanta, Georgia. And I took it upon myself because I'm like you, I'm a goal-oriented person. I will do what I can to help. I'm bossy. We call it leadership, but I'm bossy. I know myself. So I said, you go, you guys get on the road. I will. What are you going to do? Are you going to bring her stuff back? What's going to happen? Give me some ideas here. Yeah, I arranged for storage. I arranged for U-Hauls to be able to be picked up in Atlanta, Georgia. I was the behind the scenes, getting everything done. When they got here, they brought back just all kinds of stuff. And, I'm loading, unloading, and then at that point we had the insurance chat. We hadn't had it before, but I said, okay, Maggie, where did she, are you handling everything, as the trustee? So I gave her your book, and she went through the book, and she was able to pinpoint a lot of areas that she just didn't even know where to go with. So not so long after we got all that sorted out, I say she did. I was just, off in the wings helping where I could. I get another phone call and said, Denise, I need to get my affairs in order. She said this, really, really, hit me in the gut. She said, would you, and she was very hesitant, which kind of surprised me. I called her on it. I said, you've known me for over 20 years. Why are you being so wishy-washy about this? She said, would you be my trustee? I said, yes. Where do I go? We meet at the attorneys. We've done the same thing for both of us. But it
Well,
took that for us to go, oh, yeah. And
well,
I knew better, is my point. I have your book. I've known you forever. I knew better.
well, the interesting thing that you just said is, and that's one of the key things I talk about in the executor section of the checklist. Do not assume that somebody will
Not
take
trustee,
on
executor.
the role of executor or trustee.
Right,
You
right.
must ask them if
Yes.
they will take on that role. Twofold. It is not fair to thrust someone you care and love into a role that they do not want to take on. And two, that you put them in peril of being held responsible for stuff if you haven't got it together. They now have up here in Canada, in Ontario, the province I live in, there's now there's now an executor insurance that you can buy, so that if anything goes wrong with the estate and somebody comes after you to sue you, you've got insurance. That's how far this has gone.
Wow.
So let's go back to life insurance for a minute. People need to understand that life insurance is for the living. It's not for the dead. Life insurance is what you leave behind to take care of someone you love, or to take care of something you love. Maybe you've built a huge business. Maybe you're a business owner. Maybe you want the business to transfer seamlessly over to somebody else in the family. You need to have, buy-sell agree. Like, we could get into a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't want to go there, but there are so many different pieces of this. But when I explain life insurance to people, I say, what life insurance is a safety net that someone has put into place to gently hold you when you fall, that will cradle you and keep you safe until you have the strength to stand up and walk away on your own. That's what it is. GoFundMe is not a life insurance policy.
Oh my God. I know. I see these things. I'm like, really? This is how prepared you were? You can't bury somebody?
If you can get on and Google how many pages on GoFundMe have the word funeral expenses in it, it's in the millions. I'm sorry, but it's not my responsibility to bury somebody else. I
agree with you.
I have a responsibility to bury myself and to take care of my family and whatever. So GoFundMe is not a replacement for it. So life insurance is one of the greatest gifts. And when people understand what life insurance really does, I had a conversation with a guy at Home Depot once at the paint counter about this. And the first words out of his mouth, it's a long conversation. We're blah, blah, blah. And I said, can I share a story with you? So I shared my story with him. And I walked away and had forgotten my gloves. I came back to get them, and he excused himself from the customer he was with. He said, I have to apologize to you. I'm sick to my stomach. I said, why? He says, what I said to you was totally inappropriate. And I'm sick to my stomach. But you know what I'm going to do tonight when I get home? I said, what? He says, I'm going to kiss my wife and my children because I can. And I'm going to pull my life insurance policy out of the drawer of my desk and call my financial advisor because I don't have enough. I said, God bless you. So it's like, I always say, connect with somebody who knows what they're talking about. That's why financial advisors, lawyers, accountants, all those people are worth their weight in gold, because they saved me. They saved my soul, because my estate was set up properly. We had reviewed our wills the year before he died. We'd increased our life insurance. So we had a lot of things in place, but I was still blindsided. And, I have to say something, because you made me think about it. My husband says, I don't adopt puppies. I don't rescue puppies. I rescue widows and widowers. Because we've had two people in the little, hamlet that we live in who've lost their spouses. And Michael just goes, okay, because I'm voluntolding him to fix this, or he's doing that, or he's snow blowing driveways, or we're helping. I do the same thing. I'm like you. I just go, okay, all right, come here. Let's, and you were talking about, you were talking about pets earlier. One morning I get a phone call from my friend who was a widow. Her son calls me and he says, Jane. I said, what? He says, the dog's name was Yofi. He says, Yofi just died in mom's arms. I can't get there right now. I said, okay, I'm gone. Goodbye. I'll call you later. And she saw me walking down the street. And
she told me this story. I cried.
She came to the door, and all I did was put my arms out, and she's taller than I am, and I'm 5'8". I just took her in my arms, and I just held her, and I helped her, and I was with her until the boys came. But it's just, I don't wish it upon anybody, but you can't understand what somebody's gone through until you walk in their shoes. I remember a young lady saying to me, not long after my husband passed away, I can't remember where I was, but I was sitting down beside her, and we got talking about something, and I told her, shared my story, and she reaches over and pats me on the arm, and she says, I know exactly what you're going through. I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. She said, yeah, my cousin miscarried last week. And I looked at her, and it was all I could do just to stay silent, because no two are the same. So I think that's a piece of, if I could give a piece or a suggestion to people, no two are the same. So if you just say, I'm sorry, I can't empathize with what I can't understand what you're going through, but I empathize with your loss, because no two are the same.
They aren't. And, talking about pets, again, this is something that Maggie and I were talking about, because she doesn't have children, has never been interested in them. And she said, she's done pretty well for herself. And we were going through line items with the book. And, she's got cats. I've got cats. In fact, some of her cats have come to live with me. It's just one of those things. I've got a foster fail that came from her stepmother in Mississippi. She's 19 years old. Nobody is going to, in their right mind, is going to rehome a 19-year-old cat. She's sitting here at my feet right now. She's not going anywhere. In fact, she's going to the vet's office as soon as we finish this call. But
oh, you're cruel.
Well, she's got a bad cold. I don't know what's going on with her, but she sounds like she's a snoring stevedore. It's like she can't breathe, poor thing. But anyway, we're talking about her cats, my cats, and you know how I feel about my pets. They're my babies. So she said, listen, I've got one brother that I like, another one that we're not close to. Her sister had passed. She said, I don't want to give my stuff to them. They're adults. They've made their own way. And I said, Maggie, what about pet rescues?
Yep.
Off we went.
Yep.
So we found some really reputable, fantastic pet rescues that are both getting from our wills. They're going to be receiving from our wills.
And that's
so many things you can look at.
It's not just person to person.
No.
There are many people that bequeath to, cancer, to stroke.
Exactly.
Like you can do the beauty and the flexibility of life insurance is that you can deem and decide where it's going to go, but you can't do it after the fact. You have to do it before. And that's, if you don't think that a lot of charities and a lot of things like pet rescues aren't funded today through the bequeath of donations through life insurance, think again. Philanthropy is on the rise. It is the biggest growing sectors of the insurance industry, because a lot of elderly people, some don't have kids, or their kids, they're not, unfortunately, they're not in contact with them anymore, or they've just said, no, the same thing as Maggie, you've made your wealth. So there's so many wonderful, wonderful things that you can do with it. It's not an evil, it's a blessing.
Now, let me ask you this. It just popped into my head because I can almost hear people saying, well, I don't have children. I'm single. I'm probably too old to even apply for life insurance. Is it going to be expensive?
Okay, life insurance, all I'm going to say on that is the cost of life insurance depends on age and the health you're in.
Right.
And I'm not going any farther than that, because there's so many different things. I don't get into product. I'm not a financial advisor anymore. Go engage a financial advisor and ask the questions. I remember my dad saying to me, well, I keep seeing this commercial on TV and it's about life insurance and I can get it without a medical and this, that, and the other and blah, blah, blah. So why wouldn't I just get that? And I said, okay, Daddy, do me a favor. Call the 1-800 number and ask them to mail you all of the information and let's take a look at it. So he did. You have to be very educated, informed, and asking questions. That's your responsibility as the person who is looking in to purchase it. There was a caveat in that, and that was with no medical questions answered. If you passed away within the first 24 months, the only thing that you would get would be a refund of premiums.
Oh, goody.
After 2 years, they would pay it. So there's all different kinds of, and that's not a bad thing, but you need to be aware of that's the way it works. So there's different ways to satisfy and to help you to get what you want. So you have to look at the merits of each one individually, and you are responsible to ask the questions. And I don't care if you ask the same question 10 times until you get it. Ask, be informed, and be responsible for you. Because
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The one thing I was just going to say is I never said anything ill about my husband after he was gone. I was angry, but I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at the circumstances. But the one thing that I never doubted for a minute was how much he loved me and our daughter, and that his sole concern would be that if anything ever happened to him, we would be okay. He just used to say to me, okay, where do I sign? Do I have to take another blood? Like, what do I need to do?
Oh.
What do I need to do? And my darling husband, Michael's the same way. He said to me one day, because we did some planning with him, and he had to, because of the amounts of insurance, he had to have some blood work done. And finally he looks at me one day, he goes, okay, I've had a few blood tests done. Do you believe now I don't have AIDS?
Oh.
Said, what?
I'm laughing because I know him.
I said, pardon? He goes, I don't know. Is there some, backdoor way to find out? But he laughs about it too. But we've both been through. His wife was ill. She didn't pass away immediately. They went through a horrific financial nightmare because her six-figure income dried up. She was, she needed care. She was like, there's so many different things. So it doesn't mean you're just going to die tomorrow. But what plans have you put in place in terms of things like critical illness insurance? Critical illness insurance is another gift. It gives you money to be able to do what you need to do in order to, if you want to go to the Mayo Clinic for, if I want to go to the Mayo Clinic, I can go to the Mayo Clinic and pay the bill because I've got the money to do it. I have critical illness insurance, long-term care insurance if you need help because you can't do the 4 essentials of life: bathing, feeding, dressing yourself, and mobility. Like, there's so many different things, and there's so many wonderful tools available to us to help us. We have one child between the two of us. I am not going to hoist that financial responsibility on our only daughter to take care of us, possibly physically and financially, because we didn't choose to do it ourselves. We just thought, oh, she could do it.
Exactly.
The only thing I keep telling her is, I'm spending the money. If you don't get a lot, too bad.
You sound like my sister. Yeah, she's done very, very well for herself. And she's the boss in our family. I'm the oldest, but she's the boss. Just ask her, she'll tell you. And she took care of my mom. She took care of my brother. And she said, I've made enough money. Now I'm going to start spending it. And her son said, what about me? She said, what was your name again?
Well,
I mentioned we're a sarcastic family.
Well, that's okay, because when I told my daughter, she looked at me, she goes, just don't spend it all, okay?
Yeah, leave $5 or something. But listen, we are out of time.
Okay.
Before I let you go, and I would say let's keep on going, but I've got to get to the vet.
Yep.
So Jane, I really appreciate your company today, and thank you so much. So do you have any last thoughts to share, and how can listeners connect with you on the web? Where can they find your book and your binder?
I think my last thought would be, don't be afraid of this. Don't be afraid of the conversation. It's a courageous conversation, but please have it. You'll thank yourself for it afterwards. And believe me, your family will forever be not in your debt, but in your just in thanks. They will give thanks.
They won't be pissed off every time they think of you.
Exactly. I have a phenomenal website that somebody I know has been instrumental in helping me with. But
I wonder who that was.
I think her name, you might know her name is Denise Griffitts, I think.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Well, Denise has just helped me to redo my website, and I'm so excited about it. So it's www.janeblaufus, BLAUFUS.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You can send us an email at support@theblaufusgroup.com if you have any questions or whatever. I'm here. The book is available. The binder is available. It's available in a Canadian edition and a US edition. So please, I hope that the time I've spent with you today, Denise, might, even if it only helps one person. I wrote the book to help one person never to have to go through what we went through. And here we are today. It's taken on a life of its own. And for that, I am forever eternally grateful to the man upstairs.
Absolutely. Well, listen, everybody, as we conclude today's episode, your feedback means a lot to me. And if you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. Your input really is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to find Jane Blaufus on the web, connect with her, find her book. Honestly, it is one of those books that belongs, it's a generational book. It's something that needs to be used and then handed down. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you next week. Jane, again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Denise.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.